Everyone, thanks for coming to my talk, Failing Up, the only way to grow on social media. So in today's talk, we'll be exploring why and how brands must take risks in order to be culturally relevant with consumers. Before I do that, though, a little bit about me. Who am I? I'm Brendan Gahan. I'm a partner and chief social officer at Mekanism. I got started in advertising back in 2005. It was right at that era when social media was really starting to become a thing, and I was fortunate enough to have sold through an early YouTuber brand integration deal back in 2006 with Smosh, who's still a massive YouTube channel, and I sort of never looked back. They drove so much traffic to the client's website, it crashed, and I was all in on social media and influencer marketing, and I've been all in on social media and influencer marketing ever since. Really active in the creator community. I sit on the VidCon advisory board and so on. And, a little bit about Mekanism. Mekanism's an independent creative agency. We've got 4 offices, not that really matters right now. And we do a ton of work with Fortune 500 brands. And this year, the Effie's named us one of the top 10 most effective independent agencies of 2020. So with that, let's dive on in. And before we go into things, I think it's really good to frame how we view social media and social media campaigns. And so I'm wondering, what is a social media win for you? What comes to mind? Is it, a witty real-time response? Is it something more epic like a Nike's, Dream Crazy Kaepernick video? Is it a Wendy's tweet? Or maybe it's a TikTok branded hashtag challenge or Snapchat AR lens. I think for most of us, these sort of activations come to mind, but regardless, I think, one of the challenges we face in this industry is that we tend to think of a social media win as a singular moment. We view it as a bit of a destination rather than a process. And I think it's important we reframe how we look at things, because it's not about one singular success. It's not about one video getting millions of views or tens of millions of views, or that one tweet getting tons of retweets. It's about thousands or even hundreds of thousands of steps that compound and lead to us building a community. That's success. And to get that success, it requires an evolution. And I think within advertising, we often put our faith into sort of this notion that all we need is the audience insights that'll dictate the way to kind of identify the big opportunities for us. And that one great big idea is going to save the campaign or bring to life a great campaign. And I think it's important to recognize that in reality, ultimately the audience is going to decide and tell you what the opportunity actually is. And that's why it's so important to constantly be testing and learning. You can't put all your wood behind one arrow because it may not be received well. So you need to constantly be out there testing and learning and questioning your assumptions. There's this narrative within advertising that content is king and that great content is going to rise to the top. And I think that's really a myth. We scroll through 400 feet of content on Facebook and Instagram each day. There's over 500 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every single minute. There are over 500 million tweets sent each day. So to assume that you're going to be successful, particularly to assume you're going to be successful with a single campaign or a single campaign asset, is an exercise in hubris. That's like spitting in the ocean and expecting to make waves. It's really silly. You've got to recognize that content doesn't exist in a vacuum. Ultimately, you've got to cultivate meaningful engagement, and that requires community. So you've got to build that foundation first. And that means not forgetting about the social aspect of social media. We tend to prioritize the media and not the social. We often tend to look at social advertising through the lens of a campaign approach, and that worked great when TV was the medium of choice, but it's not so great today, at least not before building a really solid foundation and relationship with your community. So ask yourself, where is engagement coming from? Is it the content? No, it's coming from the community. So we need to redefine success and enjoy the journey, that process of cultivating a community. Because the only way to really be relevant to someone is to build a relationship with them, and that takes time. Ultimately, like I said, we need to reframe and redefine what success looks like, and recognize that social media is reflective of real life. So offline and online, people generally more or less behave the same. And the way we approach social media, oftentimes it's like expecting to get married after one great pickup line versus building a relationship, which ultimately leads me to kind of the two areas that I'm going to explore where brands need to invest. And first, I'll discuss the role of the social platforms and the broader ecosystem and the experimentation risks brands must be willing to make. And secondly, I'll discuss how trial and error in content development is a necessity if you want to go beyond vanity metrics. Net, most of us are far too conservative in where and what platforms we're investing in. To kind of illustrate my point, I'm going to introduce a bit of American history. So after the passage of the Indian Appropriation Bill, President Benjamin Harrison made the declaration that on April 22nd, 1889 at noon, the unassigned land of the Oklahoma Territory would be open for settlement. And so with a single gunshot, a line of people on horses and wagons and even on foot just ran off into the prairie to claim their land. Now, by the end of that day, nearly 2 million acres of land had been claimed, and 62,000 settlers were living on the lands. So 0 to 62,000 overnight. Now, the byproduct of all this was that previously impoverished settlers and immigrants, were able to build up farms and businesses and really pull themselves up out of poverty. And emerging platforms are sort of like these new territories opening up for new settlers. Those that are quick and early to stake their claim reap the lion's share of rewards. Sure, many will face hardships along the way. It is a bit riskier. Established territories and established platforms are saturated with content and creators with millions of followers. Too many of the existing resources have been gobbled up. So in the case of social media, you're competing with established creators with millions of followers for an ever decreasing amount of attention because there's so much content. Whereas if you're early, you're essentially a big fish in a small pond. There are new territories emerging everywhere and all the time. But we tend to view digital media and social media in particular generally through this sort of duopoly of Facebook and Google. Duopoly of Facebook and Google. Now, I think it's important to recognize that while they're a duopoly for money, they're not necessarily a duopoly for usage. And that's a distinction that's incredibly important to keep in mind. More time, for example, is spent on WhatsApp worldwide than any social platform other than YouTube. Users are spending the same amount of time on Snapchat as Instagram, and Snap is actually the preferred platform for teens right now. U.S. adults will spend an average of 24 minutes per day on mobile messaging. As advertisers, oftentimes we get stuck and lulled into this sense of complacency. We often fail to look beyond the established or obvious options. And that's a massive, massive missed opportunity. For example, how many of you have actually done campaigns on any of these platforms? Just referencing a couple of them, did you know that since early September, Discord has been generating an average of about 800,000 installs a day. Reddit is actually bigger than Facebook in terms of traffic. PewDiePie, the largest single-person YouTube channel, was streaming on DLive exclusively until a few months back. Triller was actually bigger than TikTok in the US until just over a year ago, I think about 18 months ago. And while there are risks with investing in sort of new platforms, but many are just like wide open, like that Oklahoma territory for brands. And the share of voice you can generate is massive. I don't even have TikTok on here, but I have two interesting sort of data points regarding TikTok. One is, we've done several TikTok branded hashtag challenges, and it now costs more than 3 times the original amount for the exact same placements to do a branded hashtag challenge. I've kept an eye on the performance of branded hashtag challenges, and the performance of them has not increased in direct proportion to the costs. So by being early, we're able to get more bang for our buck. Additionally, 25% of TikTok users are not on other platforms. These new territories, not only are they opportunities to grow, but they're opportunities to reach consumers you can't reach elsewhere. And oftentimes we forget that fact. And this is something we see time and time again. For example, on YouTube, the median views plummeted to 89 in 2016. That was the last stat that I could find. A decade earlier, in 2006, that number was 10,262. The first banner ad had a 44% click-through rate. Today, you're lucky if you're getting 2%. On Facebook, organic reach in 2012 was 16%. Today, once again, you're lucky if it's about 2%. So by being early, you just generate and accrue so much more share of voice. So I love this quote, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM, and I think you could say the same thing about, a Facebook or Google today. It's a very safe bet. It's an established bet, but it is not necessarily a better bet, and it's certainly not the innovative one. New platforms drive a disproportionate amount of value, and some will fail. But because of the disproportionate amount of value, the trade-off is well worth it. In the words of Jimmy Carter, go out on a limb, that's where the fruit is. And with content, we also tend to do our best to sort of avoid failure, which I think to a certain extent guarantees it. We, in advertising, overthink every asset. We move from campaign to campaign with little continuity or consistency in our content. As a result of that, we lose so many learnings, and we don't get to apply those learnings from one asset to the next. I think this YouTuber ZHC really illustrates what I'm talking about.
Guys, it's Zach Shea here, and I'm gonna teach you 3 easy tips for gaining a lot of followers. So I was stuck at 0 followers for a long time, and I found out how to get a lot of followers myself.
Now that video was one take. It was awkward. It was rambling at times. The backdrop was just his living room with Zach seated. Zach is his first name, seated on the couch. That's it. 23 videos later, he did his first challenge video. Tens of videos later, he did his first collaboration video. And then after that, he did his first giveaways. All of his videos sort of had that same foundation. His art was at the center of it. And additionally, video to video, the changes were relatively minor. And if you looked at video to video, you wouldn't see much of a shift. But when you look at them year over year, quarter by quarter, you can see that the changes are become dramatic because it was uploading once a week and was making small adjustments each time. After his first year of uploading every single week, he only had 1,011 subscribers. Where do you think he is now, knowing that video was just 3 years ago? In the last month, he's reached 5 times the audience of a typical Monday Night Football viewing, and more viewers than all episodes of The Last Dance. He got off to a slow start. He only had 1,000 subscribers after his first year, but his efforts compounded. He went from averaging 10,000 monthly views in 2017 to 100,000 in 2018 to 5 million in 2019, and now averaging as many as 100 million views in a single month. And his content now looks much nicer, but beyond that, he's also building in a ton of different engagement mechanisms with his audience. And he's built a rapport with them. He's got history. He's got that relationship with them, which you can sort of see him reference in just this quick little clip that I'm going to show you.
As of today, I've bought over $1 million worth of products, hand-painted them, and gave it all away. And now we are doing the biggest giveaway in the entire world, but that's for later in this video. Now, if you're wondering how we gave away $1 million worth of products, we have to go back 1 year to when we did our first custom iPhone 11 giveaway video.
So you can see he's got that engagement, he's got that historical references, he's been with his community for a long time, and along the way he's iterated to create more and more engaging content to interact with his community. Now, obviously, creators are one thing, brands are something else entirely, and any great brand in social experiments a ton as well. Wendy's is a beloved brand in social media. Everyone loves to reference their Twitter. They do a great job. It is great. But if you look beyond each individual asset, you realize the foundation that they've put in place. They've tweeted nearly 200,000 times. Now that's more than Burger King, Subway, Five Guys, and Arby's combined. So their willingness to sort of test and learn through repeated attempts is a big part of what has made Wendy's so successful. You can see the same approach being applied with Lego. Now, Lego's one of the largest brands on YouTube. I think they're like the third largest brand on YouTube. They've got 10 million subscribers, over 9 billion views just on their main channel, and they're growing at a rate of about 350 to 400,000 subscribers a month. That's more than most brands have for their entire channel. Now, how did they get there? They got there through that sort of quantity to quality approach. They've uploaded more than 23,000 videos. Think about that. How many learnings they've been able to apply. Now, they don't invest all their efforts in attempts at viral videos or really elaborate productions. Instead, they focus on episodic content, and it just is a constant process of refinement. For example, one series they've got is Explained With, which answers common questions a young kid may have. How do roller coasters work? Or why do we have seasons? Another big series is called Rubriculous, and it's got the same consistent cast participating in various YouTube challenges while incorporating Legos. The list goes on. They've got several of these. It's that continuous refinement that's really led to this massive growth. And it's more than just up and to the right. This is exponential growth we're talking about. So if you were to start with 10 views on something, for example, out of the gates, you start very, very small. And you post once a day and simply focus on making 1% improvements each day. Over the course of 5 years, that grows to 770 million views per asset by the end of it. So just these marginal, very slight tweaks over time of the same format allows you to evolve. Now, the way we tend to approach things in advertising is not really conducive to supporting that approach. We don't start small and make small changes. We feel like we sort of have something to fail by letting it, an asset or a campaign get a handful of views. So we launch it fresh out of the gates with major media support, and we're starting big. We've got fewer assets. We often take months before we launch something new. As a result, we're losing out on opportunities to really learn. And it's important to recognize that publishing consistently provides information, provides you from becoming stilted and disassociated from what is actually effective. Each video or tweet or whatever it is should be approached as a learning opportunity and a chance to get more data and improve, because improving on what works and discarding what doesn't allows you to grow and improve exponentially. So what are the key takeaways from all this? First off, it's important to explore new territories. In the case of platforms, we need to embrace the fact that a handful of them may not be around in a few years, and that's okay, because the returns by being early will outweigh the costs of the occasional failed platform. For example, comparing those YouTube numbers, 2006 to 2016, you were getting 115 times the amount of views in 2006 for the same amount of effort. That's going to offset a number of failed platforms. So by being early, you'll break away from those marginal gains and generate exponential ones. And on the content side, you need to be willing to start small, because if you want those crazy returns, you want that ZHC style hockey stick growth, you cannot jump from campaign to campaign. Instead, you need to be like ZHC and make small adjustments over time. Be consistent, get as many at-bats as possible, and look at content as an opportunity to generate learnings. If you focus on both of these, this is where you're going to get those major wins and shift from marginal gains to exponential ones. So with that, thanks for watching. You can find me anywhere on social at Brendan Gahan. I'm at Mekanism, Mekanism.com. And you can also check out my blog, BrendanGahan.com. Thank you so much.